Hello, everybody. Welcome to Impact Collective's Fireside Chat on green energy and environment. We're very happy to have you all join us. And our guest speaker for today is Vincent Arribe. He is the Sustainable Development Business Development Lead at Microsoft's Climate Innovation Fund. And we're super happy to have him here. For those of you joining us for the first time, Impact Collective community is actually an Asia-Pacific community-driven accelerator for startups. We're very passionate about accelerating impact and sustainability within the region for Asia-Pacific. And happy to have you here. My name is Charlotte. I am the Impact Manager here at Impact Collective, as well as the Sustainable Innovation Officer at the World Federation of UN Associations. And we are part of a growing community of 1,400 community members, all in different sectors. This spans policymakers. We have awesome innovators and startup representatives. We have investors and experts from different industries. And we'd love to invite you to join our platform. For those of you that have joined us in the chat, we will be sending along the link for you to check out more details. But without further ado, I would like to let Vincent take the lead and tell us a little bit more about our subject for today. Vincent, can you say a few words about your background, what you do, and what inspired you to start working in sustainability?
Absolutely. Hi, Charlotte. Good morning or afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to meet you. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I'm delighted to be talking about myself a little bit and about what Microsoft is up to in the climate space. More in general, I hope to see as many hearts and thumbs up as Charlotte did in our introduction. Obviously. Oh, thank you. That's lovely. I grew up in France. And my accent may have betrayed me already. I studied economics at Sorbonne University, and I decided to explore the world some 20 years ago and see how I could make a difference. So I went to Canada, studied at University of Quebec in Montreal for 3 years, actually, where I got a master's degree in developing economics, and then decided to go to India. And I know there are a lot of people on this call from the region and from the country, so delighted to be talking to you guys. Went to India to work for the French government, and namely the French embassy in New Delhi, where I spent almost 2 years working on development topics between the French and the Indian government and some of the countries in the region. So really loved my time over there. It was 20 years ago. I know the country has changed dramatically since. I really think of that period as the best years of my life. So there you go. I then, after I worked in India for 2 years, I went back to France, obviously, looking for a job. It was not super easy, but then I joined Microsoft a little bit by chance, I would say, and thought I would spend, maybe 2-3 years in the big corporation and maybe venture to different topics after that. But actually, so it's been, I joined the company in 2005, which makes me a 16-year veteran in the company, almost 17 years. But I actually have had the pleasure, the chance, the luck, however you want to call that, to have at least 5 or 6 entirely different careers within the company. So I started to work on customer satisfaction, moved to marketing and operations, did some market intelligence work. And then in 2017, I decided to take a turn and change again my career and work on one of the programs that Microsoft has set up in corporate and social responsibility, which is the Arribe program, which is geared towards bringing connectivity into various unconnected areas in the world. So a career-changing move, which led me to work very closely with the environment sustainability team at Microsoft, which was a team of, say, 4 people then. It's still a small team because we're 20 plus, but we're in the in the tens. We're not hundreds. Yet really adored engaging with that team, and that's probably what took me to move to that team after that. When the team started to expand 2 years back after we made our commitments around environment responsibility, I decided that the time was right for me to join that amazing team made of very dedicated and extremely bright people. And so I took my chance and joined the Climate Innovation Fund some 15 months ago. So that's it. I should mention that between India and Microsoft, I did work on environment sustainability matters. So I worked on white paper for the French government back then, but it was a very different. 20 years ago, we were talking very differently about environment sustainability. And to be honest, it was certainly at the back of my head all that time. But from a role in a subsidiary of Microsoft to leading one of leading a part of the Climate Innovation Fund at the corporation, it was quite the journey. So I'm really delighted to be speaking to you more about this if you'd like, but I know we have so many topics to discuss.
Thank you so much for this amazing introduction. I definitely will be, I think, digging a bit more into what you've been saying. But I think we can maybe start first with Microsoft's commitment. So I know that they recently committed to being carbon negative by 2030. And on the innovation fund that you're working on, this requires investing $1 billion in new carbon reduction and removal technologies. Could you tell us a bit more about your work around that and where you are in this journey, and maybe if there are any interesting milestones that you'd like to share with the program for the fund?
Absolutely. And you can hear me, right? Yeah, because I keep on muting myself when I don't speak. So yes, okay, thanks. So indeed, Microsoft has made some quite ambitious commitments in the past 2 years. The one you mentioned, and I'll come back to it, follows. I wouldn't say it was a commitment, but a renewal of a commitment, right? Because Microsoft had already pledged to be carbon neutral. And this is something we had achieved as a company. So in 2012, the commitments that we made at the wake of 2020, this dual commitment on carbon, a commitment on water, and another one on waste, and I'll expand in a second. Really came from the renewed attention and urgency of the climate issues, as well as being as a corporation being able to account for how to be able to help the world achieve the goals that have been set at the Paris Accord to limit the temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So that's really something that is at the core of the commitments of Microsoft. So now to expand a little bit on the commitments that we made. The first commitment is indeed to be carbon negative by 2030. Because it's not the time anymore for carbon neutrality. We need to remove the carbon and the greenhouse gases that have been spilled in the atmosphere for the past centuries, I should say. That's one. The second is to have, and this is very ambitious, but to remove all the historical emissions of the company by 2050. So think of Microsoft, and since its inception in 1975, we've emitted carbon. We want to be carbon negative, so removing carbon from the atmosphere more than we emit by 2030. But by 2050, we want to have removed all the carbon that we've ever emitted. So that's extremely ambitious. We also made the commitment to be water positive, so have a positive impact on water throughout the ecosystems where we operate in the world, as well as to be waste neutral. And those two other commitments are also by the time horizon of 2030. So that's a set of commitments that were at the foundation of the renewed energy that Microsoft has put into environment sustainability. And the Climate Innovation Fund was launched at the same time as our renewed commitments on carbon, and with really the objective to be one of the tools that we would put at the service of the company and the world to attain those goals. So it's really at the core of our strategy, and we are really looking to invest into solutions that are gonna benefit the world as well as help us achieve our own goals. Because when you think about carbon removal versus carbon reduction, the technology is just not there yet. Lots of things are happening on the market, obviously, but we need those to accelerate tremendously. So did I answer all your questions, Charlotte?
Yeah, definitely. I think, the last one I had was just about if there were any milestones that you had hit. So it seems like, already carbon neutrality is a pretty big one, and the fact that we're going, I think, above and beyond sets a great example for other corporations, but also other sectors. For the types of startups that you're looking at, I believe that you're looking in developing markets as well. Could you maybe talk a bit more about the types of solutions and where you're looking to find them?
For sure, and I should have mentioned earlier that we $1 billion sounds like a lot, and it is. Obviously, it's an immense commitment from Microsoft. The Climate Innovation Fund, just so you know, sits alongside two other impact investment funds that Microsoft has set in the recent years. One around affordable housing for the Seattle area where the Microsoft corporation is, and one around racial equity. Those two commitments plus the Climate Innovation Fund account for almost $2 billion. But back to the $1 billion of the Climate Innovation Fund, we also know that it's also humbling to know that this is a $50 trillion issue, right? So we still know that some more and additional capital is going to be required for us to achieve the goals that have been set at Paris, in Paris. So that's really humbling. About those KPIs, so yes, indeed, that was an interesting milestone. When you think about the fund, so we have the mandate to deploy our capital in the first 4 years of the fund. So it was launched in January of 2020. So it's gonna end in January of 2024. We are on track to investing our budget for sure. And more importantly, you mentioned the technologies that we're looking to invest into. It's not just energy, right? Like energy system, we have defined sort of 3 different verticals of impact for us. And I should probably talk about our investment prioritization principles first, but I'll answer your question because you asked nicely. One is energy systems, definitely. So we're going to look at investments into a few different areas, 3 subcategories, if you will. Energy storage and integration is definitely one. Power generation and fuels is a second one, and energy management is going to be a third one. When you think about power generation and fuels, but I want to link this to our investment principles as well. We have the mandate to be catalytic on the market, right? And so we're not going to fund huge solar or wind farms or technologies or projects as much, but we're going to look at investing into new technologies that are not at scale today. And you can certainly think in terms of fuels, like synthetic fuels would be one of the target technologies that we would look at. A second industry or vertical that we're looking at is what we call industrial supply chains. So that's exactly what you mentioned, what we mentioned earlier with the target of the company, but it's carbon dioxide removal. It's also construction materials in general, so construction materials like steel and concrete, which account for 16% of the worldwide greenhouse gas emissions today, but as well as packaging, for instance, for our products and those kind of things. And replacing those single-use plastics would be one of our goals, and then the broader topic of waste in general and circular economy. So this is also a focus for us. And the last of the three verticals that we've identified is what we call natural resource optimization, for lack of a better term, but that's all that has to do with what we call planetary insight. So think of all the solutions that are going to leverage, for instance, satellite imagery. That's one. The second is sustainable agriculture. We could talk day in, day out about agriculture. Our main investment topic in agriculture is probably around carbon dioxide removal as well, and namely carbon soil sequestration. So that's probably where we're gonna end up investing. And the last one is water technologies. Water is also, as you know, because I've said it in the goals that we've set for the company, water is also one of the very important technologies we want to invest in.
Great.
I'll stop here, Charlotte.
No, super ambitious. Before this, you wanted to mention something else that you skipped to answer my question.
Yes,
I'm going to take the time now to talk about it.
That's our fundamentally what you need to know about and I'm probably anticipating on one of your later questions, but fundamentally how Microsoft looks at environmental sustainability, you have understood it by now. It's 4 pillars. It's carbon, waste, and circular economy, water. The last one being ecosystem. That's also super important for us. But then what I skipped earlier was the investment prioritization principles that we've set for the fund. And because what I mentioned earlier, we're an impact first fund. It's critical to understand that. Meaning we are primarily going to be looking to invest into solutions that have a meaningful, measurable impact on the climate and by 2030. So, we're a data-driven company. We love data, and we need to be able to measure the impact that we're going to have. The second is underfunded markets. And to answer one of your questions around emerging markets, I'll talk about that later. But like underfunded markets, meaning we want to invest into solutions that are struggling to find the traditional capital markets today, right? So we want our capital to be catalytic. And we want to support all those solutions that we believe are going to have a positive impact on the planet, but that would not find capital otherwise. The third of our 4 investment prioritization principles is climate equity. So here it's exactly what you were saying earlier. We don't look to invest only into solutions in developed markets and in highly subsidized markets, for instance, like, California in the US or Western Europe, to name a few. But we also want the solutions we invest into to benefit the most climate threatened communities. And when you think about, and I know it's gonna talk to a lot of people in this call, when you think about climate threatened communities, yes, definitely the US, and we see that day in, day out, like more and more communities are threatened by climate change, and you see the wildfires in the west coast of the US every year. Where I live, you see all those hurricanes, but like it's also in a lot of emerging markets, right? So think Global South. We want the solutions we invest into to benefit the Global South as well as more mature markets. The last of our investment prioritization principles is a shared alignment to the company. So obviously we have set those goals for us. Obviously they're enshrined into the larger goal of that mankind has set for itself, which is the Paris Accords, to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees centigrade. Yet we also want the solutions we invest into to help Microsoft achieve its own goals, right? Because we believe, because those goals are ambitious, that if they help Microsoft achieve its own goals, it's going to help other companies to do so. And we also want, because we include in our carbon commitment, because we include scope 3 emissions, so all the emissions coming from our supply chain, we also need those solutions to help our customers and suppliers be carbon negative. So that's about it. It's a lot.
Just about it. I think that's amazing. I mean, what we've been working on is really this like impact profit alignment in business model. So the fact that you guys are working really on highlighting this impact angle and tying it back to data to really showcase, you know, like put concrete facts to what people are doing and how businesses are helping to achieve it in their respective industries is super interesting. I think we have a question later on that we'll cover that. But yeah, I mean, do you have any favorite stories that you'd like to share about maybe one of the climate businesses that Microsoft has supported, if you can, or maybe whether it's through your personal fund or any other projects that you worked on with Microsoft?
Yes, I'd love to. So, and maybe I'll take your question slightly differently.
Sure.
It's probably a bit late for me to highlight to highlight one particular solutions that we have invested into. Although we made amazing commitments and financial commitments to amazing companies. It's a bit late. It's a bit early, so I'd probably switch to something different. Is an announcement that the company has made just to tell you how environmental sustainability is core to what the company does and how we think about it. And I'd love to tie it into one of our investments. It will come, but it's not directly tied to one of our investments. But it's the ocean plastic mouse that we have recently announced in our product launch. It's a mouse, so think those kind of devices, right? A mouse that is made of ocean plastic. So really, when you think about tech and the environment and our supply chain and all of the value chain of companies, of big tech companies like Microsoft, I think it's a very good product to highlight. I'm looking forward to having one. Not only it's made of ocean plastics, but also the packaging is 100% recyclable. And the specs on the battery is that it's going to last up to 1 year, so it's just fantastically amazing. Like it's one of those products that have been extremely well thought and environmentally thought. So,
Right, that's amazing. So really thinking about the whole life cycle of a product as well as what goes into the supply chain angle of it.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's a great story. Thanks for sharing. Is there will there be metrics also showcasing like how all this is? I mean, it's a product that's being launched, right? So I just wanted to see if you had any resources to share about this. Maybe there are groups who want to do a bit more research on this, or maybe if you wanted to recommend anyone that we should be following or listening to that. Whether they're within Microsoft itself or just within the climate carbon innovation space, that might be interesting to learn from. We'd love to have a few recommendations.
Yes, and I'm going to sound awfully corporate, but the one guy who has inspired me to work in the field is my big boss. He's our Chief Environmental Officer, Lucas Jopa. He's really an amazing individual. Extremely dedicated, and when you think about, and he talks about it in some blogs and some articles in the press, when you think about how to drive change, even at the scale of Microsoft, and even in a corporation like ours, it's just amazing to think how he went through that journey. He has LinkedIn. Well, he is active on LinkedIn, obviously, and all the social media. But like, he also has LinkedIn trainings that are available out there that help companies think through their own environmental transformation journey. So I think it's that's one. The second, I'd mention one podcast, the Interchange, that is available on lots of different platforms. And if you want, by the way, to listen to the full story of the Climate Innovation Fund, my manager did a recent talk in that podcast around the Climate Innovation Fund. So I encourage you to listen to it for sure.
Great. Amazing. I'm sure that a lot of people will be checking those out. We have quite a number of questions popping in right now in the chat. So I think we'll start answering a couple, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Great. Okay. The first one we have was, what's the best way for startups to engage with the Climate Innovation Fund or any impact-driven initiatives from Microsoft?
So there is, I maybe to answer that question, I should give you some hints as to what our remit truly is and how we function. So we're an impact investment fund. We look to invest into, well, we have the luxury of having a broad array of different tools and asset classes that we can go after. We can do venture capital investments through debt or equity. We can do project finance for a mature startup that have project that needs project finance. We usually invest Series A or after. Not before. We don't do seed as much. We do not lead rounds as well. We are a strong syndicate, but we do not lead rounds ourselves. We're too small of a team to be able to really lead rounds. What else should I say? I think that already gives you a good overview. So in terms of resources, I see somebody has posted some of the links to our website. We have an intake form on our website. So if ever you fit into what I just said about being a post or Series A or after post seed, having some commercial traction, having some established customers, having a product, we don't have a mandate to do grants, for instance, unfortunately. But like, if ever you fit in those categories, you should certainly inquire and send an inquiry. We're definitely looking to invest into ventures in the APAC region. We are certainly, yes, so feel free to do so. We also review, just so you know, on our process, because then you can really wonder if Microsoft has the agility to really review all of these inquiries that are made on our website. We do review all of them every week. So we have a weekly cadence for that. So you may have a negative response, but at least you'll know if both in terms of target technologies that I've laid out earlier, right, like energy system, industrial supply chains, and natural resource optimization, as well as in terms of maturity and raise parameters, you'll know very quickly if you fit the technologies that we're set to invest in.
Thank you. We have another question from Songi who asked, how do you measure impact? What's your matrix when you decide which startups to invest in?
It is a very good question, and I'm definitely not the expert to be talking about that. But like, one of the main aspects of the impact we measure and how it is measurable is in terms of CO2, carbon dioxide removal, right? So we do model the impact of the solutions we invest in terms of CO2 removal. and mitigation. So that's certainly one of the aspects that we're looking at. But we also are looking at, diversity, equity, inclusion metrics that are also very important to us, to Microsoft in general, but to us, the Climate Innovation Fund in particular. So we look to all of those. So, when we invest in a company, we certainly ask how diverse the team is and where it's located, where the solution is going to land. Like that's, again, when you think about the 4 pillars that I've laid out for the fund, these are foundational to everything we do. So climate impact, underfunded markets, climate equity, and shared alignment. So if you check those boxes, you have an increased chance to get us to get our interest piqued, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. Well, for us, what we've been working on also is trying to bring more awareness around the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, that the UN has been advocating. And I know that Microsoft has also been doing a lot of work around that. Particularly for us, we've seen that while people working within the space are familiar with the language, general public sometimes are not as familiar. And so one of our key things, especially through Impact Collective, has been, trying to raise awareness around this. I don't know if this is something also that you guys have in the language for your startups, but definitely I think on your website and some of your projects, it's definitely something I've seen floating around.
Well, sorry, Charlotte, I didn't get the particular keywords you were looking for.
Yeah. No. So I said for our program, we've been working on the Sustainable Development Goals, like aligning businesses within impact profit alignment, and that's been our general matrix. And the last thing I said was just that we've been really working to increase awareness by the general public of the SDGs in general, so that they can understand the language around it. And, with the aim to empower innovators and startups to be leading the change within their respective industries. Because I think while you're, focusing really on specific verticals, we're doing a more horizontal approach. And as such, we recognize we're not experts in every single field, right? And in that sense, we're really looking to empower innovators to use this language in order to improve their public-private value proposition. So that means not only being more competitive and aligned with impact for private investment, but also public sector and pilot project opportunities. So just a little context on our end.
No, sorry, I missed the SDG part of your sentence. Yes, SDGs are at the core of lots of things we do, although it's not specifically, we don't specifically name the SDGs, but like when you talk about climate impact, when you talk about climate equity, when you talk about underfunded markets, you touch on lots of those SDGs, right? Like we also have Microsoft philanthropies, right? Like a big philanthropic activity and philanthropic team that is very active and that is a bit more dedicated to those SDGs, I would say, although that's probably a clumsy way to say that they use that vernacular a little bit more than we do. It doesn't mean that it's not at the heart of what the Climate Innovation Fund does. Obviously, it is. Yet, I would also highlight the fact that some of the fund managers we work with are like using that particular set of sustainable development goals, and that the matrix developed by the UN to invest into climate ventures. So yes, it's definitely, even if not at the forefront of our own vernacular, it is definitely in the back office over there. Yes, and we certainly look to be additive to those SDGs as well as to the objectives set in COP. Yes.
Great. Oh, I see we have a couple of more technical questions around the investment process. What's the normal timeline for investments?
So it's a good question. We are trying to be as nimble as we can. Typically, for us, it takes we like to say it takes up to 6 to 8 weeks to from a first contact to an investment decision. We've made investments in that time frame, which is again quite short for an investor like like us. Yet it can be longer. So it all depends on the feed, the degree of maturity, how fast we understand the solution, etc., etc. But think in terms of like few months, like two months, 6-8 weeks. That's about the. But maybe I'm not answering the question. Actually, I'm reading it again. time period, and there is. Charlotte, did I answer the question?
Yeah. I mean, I think the question was also around like due diligence, how long it just takes to do the process from review of the startup until conversation starts.
Yes, and if that was the question, then yes, I did answer that question. I also could have read that, and I just will reiterate this point that we have committed this $1 billion of our own capital in the first 4 years of the life cycle of the fund of the fund. So it's from 2020, January of 2020 till January of 2024. We're gonna stop with the Climate Innovation Fund after that. But maybe we'll I don't know what's gonna happen after. So.
Okay, great. Follow-up question was, in your selection process of startups or solutions, how critical are the profit margins?
It is. I would say it is not as critical. Like companies, we like companies to have some commercial traction. Being profitable is a different story, right? So we don't require startups to be profitable. We know it's a tough market, it's a tough business. Solutions take time to mature and to reach scale. So we're here to accelerate new ventures and innovate in new technologies, right? So if they were profitable, it would probably, if they were all profitable, it would probably impact negatively our underfunded market principle, right? So yeah.
Good to know. I actually see one additional question that kind of relates back to something I wanted to ask. What would you advise startups that are starting out on the seed stage journey to fundraise? Just in general, or even just for startups that are looking to, get to the stage that they need to be to apply to your fund?
It's a multifaceted question, right? So. Mm-hmm. And I see where I thought we would be much quicker than that. It's already. Oh no, we still have time, right?
So yes, yeah. we have time.
Okay, that's great. It's a multifaceted question, and I could answer it many different ways. I will answer for myself, right? As an investor, because I don't have. The longer tenure that some of my colleagues have in climate and impact investing, I would say having a very well articulated and thought of value proposition is essential. Like for your investors to understand what you're doing and identifying the key markets you want to go after, your segmentation, all of this is critical to me when I take investment decisions, because if I talk to a company and then I have to guess or to probe second guess every customer segment or the solution itself, then it doesn't make my life super easy, right? So having a very well thought of and articulated value proposition. Obviously a good product, but that's a given. That would be certainly something I would put at the top of the requirements to talk to investors.
Great. I think those are two key things also that are important and take a lot of time, actually. Like making sure that you explain your value proposition is quite a process that needs a lot of reflection and thought into what types of people might, or what are the different audiences you might be pitching this to, right? Whether
Agreed.
it's your customers or investors or public sector.
This is gonna sound utterly trivial, but like having a good product is one thing, but like being able to do something with your product and sell it is a different thing. And as we think about climate ventures, we don't want to waste any of the good ideas that are out there just because people are unable to articulate the product that they build the right way, right? So yes, I would think it's even a key responsibility of the new climate tech leaders to be able to do so, to avoid wasting their great ideas.
Yes. Ooh, I see one more question that's building upon the due diligence. How do you do the tech due diligence process, in addition to the length, which you've already covered?
And it relates to how the environment sustainability team is set up at Microsoft. So, like I said, we're a team of 25. We're going to be 30 at some point, but on a total number of employees of 200,000 around the world, it's rather marginal, right? So we have to rely on people within the company to help us do those kind of things, right? To help us assess whether a carbon solution is a good carbon solution. It's truly removal and not carbon reduction. To then really assess if the technology itself is sound. We have the luxury of being a tech engineering company as well, and we have lots of engineers who are passionate about climate, who are willing and able, and who do help us on a daily basis assess the solutions that we have in front of us. So that's really a blessing to be able to count on an increasing and a huge number of subject matter experts throughout the company, whatever the topic is. So I think energy, we have definitely lots of expertise in energy. Think anything digital, we have lots of expertise. And because we're Microsoft, that's something I should have said earlier. Like we also invest more often than not at the nexus of hardware and software. So we like when a solution is also a software solution, with the exception of a few areas of focus like carbon removal, which are going to be very mechanical and hardware heavy and software light, I should say. But yes, in essence, we rely on all the colleagues that we have across the company who are not only able but also extremely willing to help us assess the technical aspects.
Amazing. Relying on the Microsoft family. I love that.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, I think we're just about running out of time for this live session. So I'm going to wrap up and would like to thank you, first of all, for coming here and sharing with us what you're working on. It's been such a pleasure. And it's great to see the enthusiasm you have around your work.
Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be able to share, especially with with you over in Asia. Really, I'm a big I have a big passion for Asia that was born in my years in India, but love to meet a lot of you. So I'll do that in the next hour or so.
Yep.
Delighted.
Yep. So for now, I will say thank you to all of our audience who's been tuning in from outside. We'll be stopping the stream now, but feel free to check out the rest of Impact Collective resources on our website, on our social media channels. You know where to find us. Thanks, everyone. And Marta, whenever you're ready. Bye.
Thank you.
Ah, seems like we're having a few technical difficulties.
The stream is off, Charlotte. Do you want to send everybody back to the lounge, right? Charlotte, are you there?
Yep.
I'm ending the session then.
Thank you.